Hello everybody, this is Anna. Welcome to my channel. So today I want to talk about this orchid I have in my collection that actually has a virus. I know it has a ring spot virus from one of the leaf that seem to have these pattern, and I've since removed that leaf. This was quite a while ago, and the new leaf that grew out all seemed perfectly healthy, as you can see here. And I asked quite a few people on what to do in this situation, and the recommendation I got was to dispose this orchid, and it was very difficult for me to throw away such a beautiful orchid. So instead of doing that, I brought the orchid to my office because there are no plants there. So this orchid really just been living in my office for the last year and a half. And for a virus orchid, I consider it doing well. The leaves seem perfectly healthy, and I've removed the old leaf that had the ring spot pattern. However, the most recent bloom had me quite concerned because, as you can see here, the bloom has a pretty strange pattern. So I think that is a sign that even though the orchid, the ring spot may not show up, the virus is still within this orchid. And I talked to someone else recently, and I was told that even though it's not showing up as a symptom, the orchid still has the virus. So it's not something that can be cured or grown out of. So it is kind of a tough decision, but I have decided to just let go of this orchid because it is possible that if a insect bites on this orchid, I think that could cause potential spread to other plants I have. So yeah, but it's too bad. It took me so much time to finally come to the realization that this just is a orchid that cannot be saved. And what do you guys think? Should I keep it? Should I let it go? I think at this point I'm pretty much made up my mind about just disposing this orchid. Okay, everybody. So this proves that orchid growing isn't always sunshine and roses. So I had this orchid repotted recently because I noticed the roots started to rot. So it wasn't doing very good. So I thought, oh, I'll just repot this. And it was not very successful, as you can see. I had to chop off all this root that's completely dead. These are just mushy, dead roots. I noticed things weren't going right because the two spike left pretty much deteriorated very quickly. And so I thought, oh, I better check and see what's happening. And all the roots had rotted. So I have a couple of theory. One is I think the pot I use is maybe a little too big. So this was the pot I repotted it in. Or it could be that I had soaked the bark in 520. Maybe I should have let it dry completely before potting it up. Because I know 520 is really great, but you can't expose the root to it like indefinitely, like overnight. So maybe it was just too much 520 in the potting medium. So that could be one of the reasons, but this is how much root I lost on this orchid. So I'm gonna have to start all over. And I don't know, I don't want to touch it since I've already touched the root. So this is how much root I have left. I'm gonna try to repot this again, and hopefully I'll have success this time, but definitely I will try to find a better pot that's a little smaller. Yeah, so when I was potting this one, I was thinking to myself, wow, that seems like a lot of medium to just pile into this pot, and maybe that suffocated the root. I don't know. Okay guys, so I'm trying a slightly different setup here just so I can show you my repotting process. So I've now cut off all the dead roots on this orchid, and I'm still trying to figure out exactly what happened because it was a perfectly healthy orchid when I got it, and I think it could be that it's just going through maybe the environmental stress could have caused it, or it was planted in moss and then I changed it to mostly bark, and also the fact that this was the previous bark was soaked in 5-20 and I didn't allow it to dry completely before repotting it. So all of these may have been a factor with the last repot. So but you know, I would never know for sure. So I'm just going to redo this one. Okay, so this orchid was planted in this pot, and as you can see, it is much bigger than this one. Now I don't have very much root, so the only thing I need to do is just to have something so the orchid could sit on. So there's not much to pot in. I've got a few roots left, and I really don't have a whole lot to work with. These leaves might wilt from lack of hydration because so much root was lost. So we'll see how this one does. And I made a mistake of cutting part of the, I don't know what to call this part. I made a mistake of cutting some of it off, and then once I cut into it, I realized that this was still alive. So I sealed it with cinnamon paste. This is very easy to make. I just use cinnamon powder and a little bit of olive oil. It just helps the cinnamon to stay in place a little better. I'm not sure if you can see this. I'm still learning how to do this. So this is the roots that I have. I mean, I got something to work with. It's not like nothing at all, but it's just really disappointing with the amount of root that I have lost. So, and I didn't lose my tag this time, so that's good. Okay, so that's what I have to work with now. And I like the Orca Whisperer's sandwich method. Actually, me too. So you do bark on the bottom, and then because I don't have a root, so I'm going to sit this low. I'm going to let this sit kind of low into the pot, and that way the pot itself is going to help the plant to give the orchid a little bit of support. And I think I'm just going to mix this. I go either way. Either I put the moss in the middle, or sometimes I mix them in. And I like the mixture to be just very loose. I don't pack them in super tight like the way orchids came from the store, because for me, when I don't use a lot of moss and they're just loose like this, loose and fluffy, they dry out quickly. So about a week and a half, this will completely dry out and I don't get in trouble for rotting my roots, the orchid roots. Okay, so some top, a little bit of bark on top. Normally I don't do this in the house. I normally do this outside, but you can see what the mess I'm making already. So if I do it outside, I don't have to worry about dropping the potting medium all over the place. But just for the sake of making a YouTube video, I'm doing this in the house today. So I think these roots can be buried inside. So I'm gonna put some medium over the root right here. Let's see if this works. So I'm just making sure that all the little air pockets are filled out. And the roots are somewhat covered, but it's not buried very deep in the pot. Okay, now this is what I have. Pretty simple. And my tag. Okay, so that's it. This is the second repot. So I'm going to write the date on it. I think today is June 3rd. It doesn't matter, as long as I have the year and the month correct. Okay, so let's hope that I have some more success with this repot. I mean, the orchid still looks pretty healthy, and it was so beautiful when I purchased it. So, but sometimes it happens if you're a beginner, and some of the things you do work and some don't. And I just want to show you that not all of my repots are failures. Like this one, for instance, this is the yellow orchid. And I repotted this in beginning of April, and look how good it's doing. It's growing all this root, that's new root that has grown now, and it's adopted really well. See all the roots? So it has adopted really well to this potting medium. So I really think what might have done that for the other orchid, it's just 5 and 20, but like it was okay, but I think I should let the medium dry completely. But I didn't use 5 and 20 to soak the medium again. There, I think maybe I just didn't do it right. So now, this potting medium is pretty much dry except for the moss that was hydrated, and I've squeezed out all the excess moisture. And so I'm not going to water this for maybe 3 to 4 days to let the roots acclimate to the environment. And once this moss becomes completely dry, so you can see it's kind of the moss is interspersed with the bark. So once it's completely dry, I will water with a little bit of diluted CV extract with diluted with water. So that's what I'm going to do next. And wish me luck this one. Okay, and while we're on the topic of rescue orchids, um, let's just talk about this orchid I have. So this was the orchid that pretty much, I mean, it deteriorated from just neglect. And I don't remember what the bloom looks like at all or how it got to this point. But I know that at one point it was doing good. Like I had a couple of new leaves that sprout out. But what happened was, I think the insect got to the new baby leaf and it chewed through the leaf. It wasn't a rot situation. And when I just gently tugged on it, everything just fell off from some kind of insect damage. So I had no leaf at all, and my first thought was, oh, I'm just going to toss it. But then I look at the root, I'm like, the root looks okay. I believe there's more roots buried in the pot. So for some reason, I didn't throw this in the trash. And then a while later, a tiny little keiki grew out from the base. So as you can see, this was where all the leaf was and everything fell out. And at first I thought, oh, is that a root or a new spike? And then I realized, no, it's actually a keiki. Look at that. That's a tiny little leaf. So I'm pretty excited. I guess that tells you that even if the orchid has completely lost all of its leaf, there is still a way to regenerate, especially if the root system is pretty strong. It is possible for this orchid to come back. So this is a interesting experiment that I'm keeping an eye on. Okay, so since we are having such a sad video episode about root rots and virus orchids, I thought I should end my video with a few blooming updates. So I purchased several African violets recently, and these are just little seedlings that have slowly starting to bloom. And this one is called Frosted January, and you can see the blooms are just, so I had one that came out first, and now I have a second bloom, and you can see tiny little flower buds that's sprouting out. So this is very exciting for me. I find that African violets will start to bloom if you fertilize, otherwise it just doesn't really do anything. Yeah, so this is just something that's very beautiful. I'm really starting to get into growing African violets, and I have a few more that is budding, so I'll do an update once those start to bloom. And this is Jiaho's Pink Girl in polaric form. This is one of my favorite orchid, and now it is really starting to bloom out, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. And lastly, I want to introduce you to this gorgeous orchid in my collection. And this is the, let's see the name. Changmao Jade and Tetraspis alba. So it's a hybrid, and This bloom is out of the world beautiful. I've never seen an orchid with such a pronounced green and translucent color. So sorry, I'm being interrupted because my dog is trying to steal a treat from this shelf. I'm trying to prevent a haste. Bella, no. Bella, no. No stealing. And I'm trying to shoot the orchid video. Oh dear. Okay. So I just want to show you the blooms before they fall. And it has a little bit of fuzzy white lip. This is such an unusual orchid. And I'm just so happy to have it in my collection. This one came from Norman's Orchid. And I got it from Eric. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it was entertaining. It's definitely, for me, a lot of things that I'm learning and seeing and experimenting. So thank you so much for joining this episode with me, and I hope to see you again.